In the following minutes, we will talk about environmental valuation. Environmental valuation is needed because nature is often invisible in policymaking. That is, the true value of nature, the true value of the environment is often undervalued and overlooked in policymaking. What does that mean? Well, usually if you think about political decision makers need to make decisions about allocating the budget of the country to different activities. Where does this budget come from? Basically, it comes from the taxpayers. We all, or at least those people who are working, are paying taxes. These taxes go to the government, and the government uses these taxes in order to build roads and do all sorts of other activities. Now, the government, of course, needs to decide which investments it wants to make. For example, the government might have the choice between building a road or supporting and investing in a factory that is being built. Maybe the government does not have enough money to invest in both activities. It cannot invest both in building a road and supporting a factory. So therefore, the government needs to make a choice. And what political decision makers and governments usually do is they look at monetary values. They do something called cost-benefit analysis. They look at the costs and the benefits of the different activities between which they have to choose. For instance, if one option is building a road, they would need to consider the costs of building a road. That's relatively easy because the costs of building a road can be easily calculated. There needs to be material for building the road, there needs to be workers who build the road, and so on. In the end, there will be a clear price tag for building a road. Now, what about the benefits of building a road? This is a little bit more difficult, but it's still possible to make estimates. When building a road, usually what happens is that people will be able to reach their destination quicker than they were able before. So people can go to work quicker. They don't lose so much time in a traffic jam. Also, trucks, so vehicles that transport important goods, are able to reach their destinations quicker than before. So usually there is an economic benefit of investing in infrastructure such as in roads. And this leads to more economic growth. The economy can work more efficiently, more income will be generated, and those gains in economic profits and economic growth can be estimated. So in the end, the government will have a clear monetary figure, a number, for the benefits and the costs of building a road. And hopefully it will be a positive number so that the benefits are higher than the costs. If the costs would be higher than the benefits, of course, there would be no point in building a road in the first place. But let's assume the benefits of building a road are higher than the costs of building a road. And this is what political decision makers can estimate. And they can also do this for all sorts of other activities, like, for example, supporting a factory. Maybe there's a private investor who wants to build a factory, and the government needs to decide if it wants to support that investor. Governments sometimes do that they support private investors by providing money or providing maybe land for free, something like that. Well, the point is that for such a project also it's relatively easy to calculate the costs and benefits. The costs of building a factory are relatively clear, and also the benefits of building a factory are relatively easy to estimate. The benefits of building a factory are that jobs will be created. There will be workers who will work in the factory. All these workers will receive some income which they can use for their own livelihood. And also the factory owner will reap some benefits. So there will be a clear economic benefit. And now this costs and benefit can also be compared with each other. And maybe the costs are also lower than the benefits. So let's assume, because again, there would be no point in building a factory if the costs of building the factory would be higher than the expected benefits. So let's assume also that the benefits are higher than the costs. And now we can compare this difference between building a road and building a factory. Which of these two activities will generate the highest profit? So for which of these two projects we have the larger difference between benefits and costs? And this will be the project which will be more profitable, and this is what governments then will choose for their investment. They will invest, and they want to invest in the most profitable projects, the projects which will generate the highest benefits. Now let's think about the environment. That's where it gets interesting. It's much more difficult to find values for the environment. Sometimes governments need to decide between economic projects and projects which are aimed at conserving nature, at protecting the environment. Let's think about that first example again. We have the option of building a factory. The other option might be of not building the factory and leaving a natural forest in the same place. So now the decision for the government would be between building a factory and leaving natural forest in the same area, not building the factory there. The costs and benefits for building the factories are clear. That's what we discussed before. But what about leaving the natural forest in the area, not building the factory? Well, the costs of not building the factory and leaving the forest as it is might seem relatively low, because the landscape can be left as it is. Maybe it needs to be protected to some extent, so there might be some costs. But what about the benefits? And that's what's really difficult to measure. What are the benefits of a forest? Of course, we can think about the benefits of a forest or the benefits of any natural resource in a qualitative way. That means we can describe those benefits. We can say that the forest will provide an area which citizens can use for recreational purposes. The forest also contributes to carbon sequestration from the atmosphere. The forest will provide a better microclimate. It will improve air quality in the vicinity. The forest also might be a habitat for various species, for plants and animals. So we can clearly describe these benefits of having that forest in a qualitative way. That means we can describe it just as I did it. But it's much more difficult to find a monetary value for these benefits that we could then directly compare to the monetary costs and benefits of building a factory, because that's what actually is necessary to really compare the costs and benefits in terms of money. And that's the motivation for environmental valuation. Environmental valuation seeks to find monetary values for environmental goods and services.